This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and this is the Acer Swift 7. Acer, boys and girls, yes, the folks who made the cheap netbooks of old, they're making really nice looking stuff lately, right? It's not inexpensive either. List price is $10.99 for this 13.3-inch Ultrabook with a kind of really stunning all-metal casing right here. Thickness of 9.9 millimeters, weighs 2.5 pounds, which is 1.24 kilograms. You have Intel Core M family Y series Kaby Lake CPUs. So that means not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but not unusual for something this thin and light. It has a gorgeous display, a pretty decent keyboard, and more. We're going to look at it now. Well, it's hard not to like the looks of this unless you're not into the black and gold thing, which some people aren't. I mean, it's good looking. The only thing is it's a heartache when it comes to fingerprints. You know, these kind of semi-matte black finishes often do pick up fingerprint oils, and the bottom, I've just cleaned it, and I'm sure you can probably already see fingerprint oils, and trust me, it's going to look even nastier top and bottom by the time we're done with it. Bottom here is your speakers, and affixed with Phillips head screws. It's really easy to open that up. We'll take a look at the internals later. And we have this nice little gold ring around here, or trim, and it gives it a kind of a classy look, a little extra detail there. Really nicely put together, no gaps, no squeaks, no nothing. And the sides have that kind of teardrop finish that Samsung used to use, like with the Notebook 9 series, and they have just recently moved away from it. I love that design. I think it looks nice, and there's a practical reason. Because the thing is so darn skinny, if you take a look over here, there's just no room for ports. So the thicker area right here gives the laptop a little raise up in the back for ergonomics and gives you room for ports. Now this is one of those super ultra thin and light, so that means not many ports, not unlike the 12-inch MacBook, the Asus ZenBook 3, even the Samsung Notebook 9 and the LG Gram that it competes with too. They tend to be thin. One thing you're not going to get is a touch screen, for example, or high-resolution displays, and we'll talk about that too, and you're not going to get a lot of ports. So we have two USB-C Gen 1 3.1 ports here. That's 5 gigabit per second. One of them supports DisplayPort out, and the charger also plugs into one of these. So one of these is going to be used up by the charger when you're, well, using the notebook if you need to charge. You have a headphone jack. That's it, folks. So the idea is this is incredibly thin, incredibly light. Throw it anywhere, kind of like the MacBook Air idea of old, only even, you know, slimmer. Gosh. You're not going to have all the creature comforts of a bigger laptop. Okay, open it up, and here's where we get to the gaudy or great, you decide part. It's certainly very, well, gold. Wow, gold, yeah. And it shows a little bit of fingerprints here. You can see some oil, but that not too bad here on the deck. We have a nice island-style keyboard, as is typical for these kind of laptops. It's very low travel. It's fine to type on. I have no issues with the way they've designed it. I like the arrow cluster being over down here. The keys are in normal places. It's just really short travel. You're going to feel it, but it is usable. And again, like most of the competition, but not all, you don't get a backlit keyboard here. Why that is, I don't know. It shouldn't use up that much power. Usually battery conservation is important here because there's not much room for a battery inside. We have a precision trackpad here. This is HP style, long, right? Really huge. I don't know why it's that big, but it is. It's a precision trackpad. Most people like those. The only thing I take issue with is it's a very slick surface. So it feels a little hard to control your movements, actually, because you're kind of ice skating across, which is an exaggeration. It's not as bad as ice skating. Other than that, it's a fine trackpad. So decent input. If you're a writer for a living, probably you'd want something with more travel in the keyboard department, but other than that, it's fine. You notice it says Dolby audio up here. Now, usually anything this scrawny doesn't have good audio. This actually has pretty loud and full speakers for a laptop this size. It's really been pleasant to listen to when it comes to watching videos and stuff like that and playing a little music in the background while working. The display is a high point here. Yes, it's full HD, 1920 by 1080, not some bogglingly high resolution. It's just not necessary to have that high resolution, especially for something that's oriented more towards productivity and not 4K photo and video editing experiences. It's an IPS display. It's glossy. It's Gorilla Glass 4, which is not that common on a laptop, so that's cool. But, you know, you'll have some glare there. Happily, it's pretty bright, though, 321 nits, so that's sufficient to combat any glare. No touchscreen here, because touchscreens are thicker and heavier, and the idea with these kind of laptops is to make it as thin and light as is possible, and also to avoid anything that's going to consume more battery, like super high-resolution displays and even the touch feature. You got full sRGB coverage here, which is what we expect to see for a premium laptop with 75% of Adobe RGB, so great for anybody who's working for content for the web. really, really nice to look at, and you can see the other specs on screen. The contrast is particularly good here, and it calibrates really nicely and very accurately if you use a colorimeter. Alrighty, so open it up. You have a bunch of little Phillips head screws like so right here. Take them all out, and there's like no nasty little clips holding it on. It's very easy to take it off. I like this. I like Asus ZenBooks in that respect. So you've got some shiny copper here as a, I'm sure, interference baffle. It's metal, and inside it's mostly just like the MacBook 12-inch, all battery, right? Look at this. So that's the battery, that big thing right there. Here underneath it says RAM plate. It really means that. It's just a copper heatsink plate. If you take this off, you'll see some chips on the motherboard and heatsink paste, and there's no socketed RAM here. So really, there's not a lot of motivation to open this up, to be honest. Here's your Wi-Fi card right here, and this is a half-height M2 SSD right there. It is a SATA interface. This is not PCIe NVMe. So, teeny motherboard for a very thin and real compact product. No surprises there, and these are your stereo speakers. So performance, well, this isn't a real high point here. This is not terrible. It's not Intel Atom or anything like that, but you know, it's that Core M family of CPUs. So this is a lower, around 4.5 watt to 5 watt consumption CPU versus your typical Ultrabook that has a 15 watt CPU. How it works is you have a very low base clock rate, and it can turbo boost for real short periods of time to make things not seem so slow, and it really does help. So the base clock speed is 1.2 gigahertz compared to the 2.6 gigahertz for your typical Ultrabook in this generation, but it can boost to 3.2 gigahertz. So it's not going to seem as sluggish as you think, but for demanding continuous tasks, that's where you'll start to notice it can't keep up, because it can't keep in that turbo boost mode for real long periods of time. Again, it's fine for productivity. You might notice it just seeming a little slower switching between programs, that sort of thing, but it's not for somebody who's a serious Photoshop jockey, 4K video editing, compiling programs that are hundreds of thousands of lines of code. It's not a heavy lifter. It's for your everyday. I take it to school, I take it to work, to meetings, that sort of thing. I get stuff done. I give a PowerPoint presentation. Fine for all those things. The exact CPU is the Core i5-7Y54 Intel Kaby Lake 7th generation. That Y gives it away as well, the new Core M series, believe it or not, because Y is the new letter Intel's using instead of M. It has 8 gigs of DDR3 low-power RAM soldered on board and Intel HD 615 integrated graphics. 615 integrated graphics are, well, not as fast as HD 620, no surprise there. And that's another little bit of a sore point there. But again, if you don't expect to be using this for ZBrush rendering or something like that, and then it'll be adequate. The SSD is a 256 gig M2 half-height SSD, and that's a SATA interface, not the faster PCIe NVMe. We have a 720p webcam, which is pretty typical for this class of laptop here. Battery on this, 4-cell, as you saw from the internals, 4-cell, 2770 milliamp per hour battery. That's not a particularly high capacity battery. What it means is it has enough battery power to power you through a 7 to 8 hour day if you're running at about 1/3 to 40% brightness, which is pretty darn impressive. Again, most of what's inside of there is a battery, and we have a low power consumption fanless CPU and a full HD, not a crazy high resolution display. So it holds up well, and the charger is nice and compact should you actually need to avail yourself of it while you're on the go. It's an important point to make. For those of you who really hate laptop fan noise, even though most Ultrabooks really aren't that loud, there's no fan here, so you're not going to hear it. Likewise, it doesn't get very hot. This is not a very high temperature CPU, and they do have that heat shielding inside too, which helps, so I never felt it get burning hot by any means, no more than warm. So there you have it, the Acer Swift 7, it's really a stunning piece of hardware, very thin and light. I mean, gosh, who wouldn't want to travel around with this thing, right? The caveat is, if you need a lot of computing power, this isn't the one for you. Just like the Dell XPS 13 2-in-1 we recently reviewed, and even the 12-inch MacBook, you're looking at the Core M family, now called the Core Y family of CPUs. So it's decent enough for everyday kind of work if you have lightweight needs, Word, Excel, the web, streaming video, that sort of thing. Not if you're doing a lot of code compiling, heavy-duty Photoshop a lot of the time, certainly not video editing. That said, it also has competition from the really lovely Asus ZenBook 3 that we reviewed, which is 12.5 inches, so you're getting a little less screen real estate, but that one has full Core i5 and i7 CPUs. The Core i5 in that starts at the same $1099 list price, so there's a lot to choose from these days, which is a good problem to have. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more cool tech videos. And thumbs up if you like this vid.